Welcome back to another Proko live stream. Today, we're going to be joined by artist Lucas Peinador, a person who we've worked with in the past and we've done other live streams with, who's not just a skilled artist, but in the technical sense is working more like Da Vinci and some other classical artists you guys might know, because Lucas makes his own art tools. If you guys don't know, right now, the Proko summer sale is going on, which will save you 20% on pretty much everything on the website, but we'll talk about that more later. For now, here's Lucas. Hey, Lucas,
Hey,
how's it
what up,
going?
everybody? Everything is going awesome. 7 p.m. here in Slovenia, so getting hungry for dinner, but we have art.
Is it art will feed you?
Exactly, your soul.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time, man. It's late. If you do end up taking some sort of snack break in the middle of the stream, I'll understand.
Awesome. I have some cookies there on the side, man. Thank you for having me. It was really fun the last time, so happy to be here again.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. So today we have just released 2 more of your brush packs for Procreate on Proko, but we're not going to be necessarily maintaining or like just restraining ourselves to just those 2 packs. We're going to be doing a few different demos with some different brushes of yours, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I recently released the watercolor pack that it was by far the hardest one that I have made but just on digital. Watercolors are really hard to emulate because of the wet on wet type of effects. And still, they're not like absolutely realistic, but I got some ways to make it work like real watercolor here in digital for Procreate, Clip Studio Paint, and Photoshop. So that one is new, and I just released it in my store before, but now we released it in Proko, and people can get it with that 20% off. So good stuff. New brushes for a discount.
Heck yeah. What is it that you're going to be doing for your demos today?
So I was thinking of grabbing a little monster type of sketch and sharing how I would approach it in different techniques. So I have here, as you can see, a little canvas with 4 little squares. And we're going to try to be using a little bit of all the packs that I have been releasing until now. So you can see that, first of all, I have here a folder called textures. And this guy right here contains certain things from a pack called the LP Traditionalizer. Now, in the past live stream, we talked a bit about it. It's a pack that makes things look more traditional with several textures. So you have in here a multiply texture, overlay texture, and screen texture. And all of them together help to make things feel more imperfect, more traditional. So I have them here, low opacity, but they can really help, give a little bit of grain towards to your inks, to your oils, whatever you want. And I don't know if you can see here in the thumbnail, you can see that there are like 4 little squares, and that is because each of these ones is using a different texture. So
nice.
Yeah, screen texture is different for the sketch than for the watercolor, than for the oils, because it actually matters the type of paper, the type of grain that you use to emulate a certain media.
Yeah, absolutely. If you were doing something that was supposed to be like watercolor, but you don't see any sort of like texture to the paper in any way, it's weird because you can't do any sort of watercolor on this like fully flat like computer paper surface.
Exactly. In fact, I can show you very quickly. It's more noticeable if you have a tone like, for example, this one. You can see the difference now better between the different papers. You see this one is a little bit grainier. This one is smoother. You have the watercolor, of course, with very, very bumpy. And then we have this one, with a bit of like an impasto type of texture for the oils that all of them really help. And we have a combination of 3. So this right here is the multiply texture. This one adds some color and some texture by default to the canvas, so you're not painting white on white. Then you have the overlays, and these overlays create a more 3D type of texture. They emulate the surface of the paper, I guess. And then you have the screen ones, that this is something that a lot of people ask me often in the comments. That is this little grainy, distressing type of effect that you preserve all the way until the end of your art. So you have some white spaces around that make it feel much more realistic. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who is wondering, so the software that you're demoing in right now. This
one is Clip Studio Paint. I have to admit, I have been more and more in love with Clip Studio Paint lately. But yeah, and mostly for the inking. It's just so smooth. There's something about it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. No, they have a fantastic engine over there for the brushes for sure.
Yeah, good stuff.
For the brush packs that we have on Proko, that is limited to predominantly Procreate, while the traditionalizer is available for Clip Studio, Procreate, and Photoshop. But you can get those on Lucas's website, which I believe is linked in the description as well. So
that's right. Yeah. Either way, most of the people actually are using Procreate nowadays.
Yeah.
So you can get those with a discount at Proko. But if you're, for example, a Procreate or a Photoshop user, then yeah, you can go to my website and you can check those out in there. And yeah, we're going to be playing with the watercolor, the traditionalizer, painting, halftones, and inking. And this one right now, that is the sketching pack. This is not released yet, and this is just a sample that I released very recently for the sketching pack. But this one is coming in the future.
There's a good little teaser here. I like it.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah, feel free to take it away. Go ahead and take us through your process. Anyone in the chat, if you guys have any questions about what Lucas is doing, or any questions about capabilities of any brushes using at any time, please let us know.
Awesome. Okay, so I was playing with this sketch, and I don't know if we're going to be using this light scenario, but at least this first idea helps me to understand this guy more 3D, because right now, when I'm going to be taking to the painting, to the oils, and to the watercolor, I need to actually understand the 3D shapes of this guy very well. And since I'm painting from imagination, then I need to imagine how the light and shadow are going to affect this guy. So yeah, I find that the sketch layer is actually useful for that, because I get a bit of a 3D-ness to it. This doesn't have anything special. You know, the usual technique. We have a division between the light and the shadow, a mapping, if you will, and then we have a rough version of the shading here that just helps to immediately give it a 3D feeling without much work. So easy peasy. Now with that, I think that we can just close this folder, or just extract the line art right here. Just put it out, and let's go on and try some inking. So
okay, so you're gonna use the same guy across the different demos.
Yeah, well, let's use the guy. Yeah, so that we can see the difference at the end, how everything looks like. So we have this guy in here, and I polished this sketch a little bit too much for my taste in inking, because I find that when I ink something that is very final in the sketch, it loses a little bit of the life to it. If I leave it rougher, then I can figure out things on the inking, and it ends up a little bit better. But let's see if we can do a nice job with that inking.
Here in the start, Joel asked the eternal question: what tablet is Lucas using?
Right now I'm using a Cintiq Pro 24 inches. No reason for you to get the Cintiq. It's an expensive tool. I know. I was just used to it because it's the one that I was using at work. And when I decided to just go full-time freelance and doing my own thing, I said, like, I need the same thing. But yeah. If you're looking for a good alternative, I actually think that Huion is making really good tablets, much more affordable. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, Huion and XP Pen both are fantastic.
Right?
They've got some great tech.
Yeah, they're surprisingly good, and for a fraction of the price. So really good stuff. Now we have to decide what to do for the inking, how to start the inking of this guy. And depending on the brushes that we use at the start, we're going to give a certain look to him. So let's show a couple of alternatives. The inking pack is divided in between nibs, round inkers, flat inkers, washes, etc. So normally for my inking, I like to use something that is either a nib, and you can see that this one is very regular, very dark. It's very good if you want to create inking that needs to be solid and sharp. So nibs in general will give you that effect. On the other hand, if you want something that is a bit more natural looking, maybe the round inkers are going to be better. One of my favorites ones is this LP Tokyo. It's beautiful. It has a bit of of a brushiness to it.
Mhm.
But the issue with this one is that it's not as easy to control, and it also has a lot of texture. So if you want something that is really clean and sharp, might not be the best option.
Mhm. Do you find yourself trying to mimic any particular tools? Like, is this patterned after a certain like brush pen or anything?
For sure, not a specific brand, but I usually go for what I feel an old brush pen, for example, feels like. And
Mm.
you can see this is what it feels to me. You know, it leaves a lot of texture. It has a lot of graininess to it, and is a bit imperfect. On the other hand, if you use something like the Water Tokyo, that one is very much like the Tokyo, but it's meant to emulate a brush pen that is one of those diluted with water, so it's
Mm.
not completely black. So yeah, I definitely get inspired by tools, but not specific brands.
Okay, that makes sense.
Let's see if we can go with this old brush. I think this old brush, and if not, then we can change halfway there. If this one is a little bit too rough, we can use this chisel, fine chisel. Yeah, I think this is the one for this one. Also, it depends a lot about the resolution of the artwork, because if it's a very small artwork, we cannot have a ton of texture. Otherwise, it makes things really, really messy.
Yeah. I know the question will probably end up coming up at some point in time, but if you're just going to sit there and doodle, you're just going to have a drawing session, what's the canvas size that you start with here in CSP?
Clip Studio Paint, for some reason, I started using a 4000 by 4000 pixel canvas. But if I go to the iPad, for example, I simply go to create a new canvas, and I usually select screen size. And
Yeah.
that one I think is much smaller. I don't know if it's like 2000.
Yeah, it's I think it's like around like that 1440p kind of thing.
So yeah, much smaller. So it really, it really depends. Also, softwares are so good now at scaling artworks that honestly I don't mind a lot. And of course, if you want to get into the whole AI, the power that it has to scale your artwork,
Yeah.
that is something. But yeah, that's a big can of worms.
I mean, honestly, upscaling tools, stuff like that, like the kind of like machine learning algorithms that help us do autofocus better. I don't think anyone should be grumpy about that. Like that's just basic stuff. It's not doing the whole thing for you.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. There is ethics, morale, however you want to call it, dilemma there, because any tool that upscales your artwork,
it is making choices.
It is making a lot of choices, because it's seeing pixels and assuming like, okay, I think that you meant to have an eyelid there, and I don't see the eyelid, but let me put an eyelid there. So yeah, they're doing something. Just don't know. It really depends on your personal choice if it's a tool that is good for you or not. But
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, everyone's gonna have different feelings on that one, especially in this day and age.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about you, but I find myself just inserting AI into every conversation. So I'm very sorry for that.
Oh no, you're fine. No, it's not a bad thing. We definitely get it all the time in the comments. So
yeah, of course, it's changing life of artists nowadays.
Absolutely. So for this guy, do you have any thoughts that kind of inspired this individual character? Or you just like sit down and see what came out?
Yeah. I don't think that I have the sketches anymore, but usually my sketching sessions are always very similar. I usually open Pinterest on my other screen, and then I start looking at artworks. You know that it opens, several related artworks, right? So you're not looking at a single one at the same time. And what that does to me is that it allows me to get inspired by those different artworks without having to like over inspire from one single one. I can see the whole screen, I can see all the artworks, and that works for me. So I knew that I wanted to create some type of monster or something like that, because it's kind of comfort zone. It's like a portrait, but you can be a little bit more flexible with the anatomy. So I thought that is what I'm gonna go for. So yeah, I opened monsters in Pinterest and started looking at, oh, look at the size of the jaw of that one. Cool. Oh, but what if we put a couple of, how do you call
Little
these
bolts.
things? Yeah, a couple of those guys in there, and oh, look at that. Maybe now it's Frankenstein. So
Hmm.
so yeah, simple like that. And of course, I would love to have a more, how would you say, thought through idea for the paintings that take a little bit longer. But for sketches, normally just something fun is more than enough.
Yeah, no, I don't think that the process that you laid out so far is any sort of bad. It sounds like a tried and true process. Look at a bunch of things at once, see what sticks.
Exactly, and a lot of times it actually helps to warm up. Most days I create content for a living, right? Like my full time job is creating content about drawing and art in general, social media,
Hmm.
feature my brushes, create new tools, all of that stuff. So a lot of days there is not a ton of time for me to draw and create a new piece.
That's fair.
Most days I have to combine my warm up with an actual piece to showcase in social media. So this allows me to warm up by getting inspired by artists that I like, and at the same time, I can get a final piece out of it.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a good way to approach that one. Plus, honestly, have being made to do something to create some piece for the sake of you to have something to show off for the tools that you make. That's a pretty good problem to have. Like, oh no, I have to draw today. That's a good thing.
Right. Oh man, don't even get me started. When I was working in a game studio, I would be dreaming of the day that I would just go off and do my own art for a living. Like it's just
Hmm.
like wake up and today, what am I going to draw? And then all it takes is for you to actually get what you wanted, for you to say like, oh damn it, this is so messy. And if only I would have somebody to tell me what to draw so that I don't have to think about it.
Yeah, it's like grass is greener on the other side kind of situation.
Always. But it's okay. It keeps us busy, right?
Hmm. So it doesn't look like you changed between brushes too much. It seems like the one that you started with was the one that you want to stick with.
Yeah, for the line art, you usually like to have something consistent. And this is something that I usually mention for people that get my brushes, because a lot of people, once they, for example, in coaching sessions or things like that, people that get my brushes tell me like, okay, what brush do I use for what? And my packs contain a lot of brushes, usually it's like 50 plus brushes per set. And I tell them, this brush packs are not meant for you to use 50 brushes. They are meant for you to find which brush do you want to use, which ones are your favorite. So out of the 50 or something that I have here on the inking pack, I don't use more than 10
Hmm.
unless very specific occasions. So this one is one of my favorites for inking, and I am sticking with it because it worked for the resolution. If the resolution of the artwork would have been a little bit bigger, I would have stuck with the first one, this old brush that has a lot more texture, because I like the idea. I don't know, like grungy monster kind of goes, but the
Yeah.
resolution of the artwork is kind of small, and you can see that I don't know. I didn't get a lot of control out of the line work. So
Mm.
yeah, that's why I'm sticking with this one. We're going to change brushes once I am out of the line work phase.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this makes sense because like if you were working on some giant piece, like let's say, rather than you sitting there drawing on some like super small piece of paper, you're now going to have to go out and make like a mural on the side of a building. You're going to change your
Mhm.
tools just because of the size of line that you have, because that gives you an ability to have more detail and fidelity inside of that much larger space.
Absolutely. Yeah, the tool matters. The tool matters a lot in situations like the size, the purpose, the amount of texture that you want. Those are the moments where I think texture matters the
I like
most.
the I like the line weight and kind of like breaking up you got on the back side of the neck just now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked almost streaky, but not. It's like it's still. It looks like it's one intact line, but it feels like an authentic mark there.
I'm glad that you say that. It's one of the reasons why this one is one of my favorite tools, because you get you have a flat tool, so that means when you're changing the angle, you can make these very thin lines. But if you're going into this direction, you have very thick lines. But that doesn't
Mhm.
mean you cannot make thin lines into this direction. They're just a little bit more wobbly. So yeah, it's cool. It makes
Yeah.
the inking fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like when you use something like a pin nib, like a metal nib, that if you go to try to draw a line and then turn sideways, like if you drew straight down and then tried to go to the right or something or to the left as a hard angle, it doesn't make a thick line if you don't rotate the actual nib itself. So it feels
Exactly,
good.
exactly. Yeah. Glad that you like that. It's one of the things that I feel makes the whole difference between interesting line work and not interesting line work. It's
Hmm.
hard to it's hard to give advice. It's one of the things that a lot of people ask me often. Whenever I have a call with somebody, it's one of those questions that appears often. Like, okay, like how do I improve my line work? And I wish there would be other advice, but most of the time it's just be more daring with the width of your line work. A lot of people are like, okay, I'm gonna do everything. For example, here in the watercolor pack, I have this guy, this liner. This one is
Hmm.
great if you want to create uniform lines. It has a tiny bit of pressure, but normally, you're going to get a very regular, very textury type of line. So good
Hmm.
stuff. But it doesn't, if you use it by itself without any of these juicy black spots, it gives you a very bland, very flat type of inking.
Hmm.
This is unfortunately the type of inking that I see often people
Where
make.
people have like low variation in line weight.
Yeah. That is
Yeah.
like the number one reason I think people feel their line work is just a bit dead.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some artists who they'll just use just like the one line weight throughout it, but
Yeah.
they can encourage other more interesting characteristics in their line art through other shape design and things like that. It's just really hard. Having that extra access to line weight is something that I am like you, it sounds like really appreciate.
I think so too. I remember there was one artist that I remember. I don't remember his name, but yeah, it was like a 1 pixel line
Hmm.
vector type of style. But his designs were so interesting to look at that you didn't mind the line work. It
Yeah.
was fun by itself.
Yeah. Especially I think for some concept artists, a lot of them they'll work with just like like a single line weight because they're not trying to make something that has like a bunch of like stylistic like pizzazz to just the lines. It's about that shape
Mhm.
design and everything. Uh, there was one question here
Mhm.
from How Has Godzilla Evolved? I see you control Z the line sometimes really fast. Is there a reason for it, or is it just because of it being digital? My lines still feel weird since I switched to digital.
Oh man, like I wish that I would not control Z so much, but like it's one of those good things, bad things of digital. You can control Z, you can go back. So I do it so much, man. Like I
Hmm.
try to get it, try to get it, try to get it, try to get it, and then once I get something I like, there you go, and go to the next one, to the next one. So honestly, like Godzilla, if you can not control Z so much, stick to that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna make you happier and probably way faster at inking than I am. But yeah, I'm just addicted to it now.
How many times do you find yourself, because you're accustomed to the idea of the first stroke not being the one that sticks, do you find yourself undoing and then placing a new line and having liked the previous one more?
Oh, so many times, dude. So many times, and there are some times that I'm like, no, I lost it because I do one line, it comes out perfect, but I don't realize until I already Command Z and did the other one. I'm like, no, I lost the line. It's gone.
Yeah, it's kind of like so for anyone who's here who does watch Proko videos normally, we had one recently about ghosting for line quality where you kind of practice the stroke before you actually make the stroke. And in this situation, it's kind of like what you're doing. Chances are you having practiced that motion, even if you did like that early line, the one that's a little bit later on with you making the fast motion, and like repeating that ghosted line a few times, it's going to have the line quality you're looking for because you've essentially practiced it.
So interesting. I never thought about it. Of course, the concept of ghosting, I was familiar with it for traditional media, but I never thought that actually doing this was a very realistic ghosting. Is you're literally making the line just 3 times until you get the one that you like.
Uh-huh.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
It's like a digital companion to it.
Yeah. You blew my mind just now a little bit.
Robert in the chat is asking, do you work with vector lines? And then also why? So CSP does natively kind of already have you working in vector, right?
Not natively, but
okay.
Man, yeah, they are really good. And I think I might find myself using them more and more in the future. I have been using them for work now. For all the ones that don't know, like Clip Studio Time tutorial. So up here, you have this little layer, right? And here you have the layer plus a tiny cube. Now that one is the vector. And here's the beautiful thing of Clip Studio Paint. You don't have to have special brushes for vector lines. You can have the same brushes that you use forever. They're going to work in vector, and man, oh man, they're wonderful. Because create the line, boom, it's vector. Guess what you can do now? You can come in here, pinch vector line, and you can grab this thing and move it around. Yeah, look at that. And it doesn't lose.
The one that I liked, there was the thing that you can do with some vector stuff inside of CSP is where if you have like let's say 2 overlapping lines, you can quickly, let's say it's like a shape that's kind of like I wanted to do something that was like, I'm gonna make this full screen. Actually, I don't know if you know where I'm going with this and you want to demonstrate on your screen.
Eraser?
Yeah, so you can like if you were gonna make a shape that was gonna overlap with something else. So let's say I'm gonna do this triangle and this circle up here, and I'm like, I just want to get rid of the part of the circle that is bad, like this here. You can quickly select that and delete it, and it knows with the vector information which it is.
That's right. I haven't used it for shapes, but I'm sure there's a way of doing it. What I'm using it a lot for some other more clean illustrations, is you go in here and then the eraser tool. If you go to the top left corner up here, you have this vector eraser, check or not check, and then you have different types. And this one right here is erase up to intersection. So this one I love because you come here and there you go. It erases automatically. Exactly. Or you come in here and boom, do that. So for like this type of things, like if you're making a character, often my characters look a little bit like this, and you have these leftover lines. So then when you come and you get rid of that in 2 seconds, it's fantastic. So, oh yeah, Clip Studio Paint. Thanks to those Japanese guys, they know what they're doing to save time to artists.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it has a specific tool set, like is necessarily their like watercolor emulation perfect? No, but the things that they focused on, like being such a fantastic tool for inking, there's incredible tools in there.
Absolutely, yeah, they are really, really good. I think for comic, I think that this thing was made for making. Before it was called Clip Studio Paint, it was called Manga Studio.
Manga Studio.
That's right. And then they renamed it to Clip Studio Paint for who knows what reason.
People don't want to just make manga. We gotta stop, guys. We gotta change the name.
Right. I think it is that. Yeah.
Because like Photoshop, I don't edit photos in Photoshop. I use Lightroom.
Exactly. So probably it was that the reason, but yeah, they still left all the tools that are great for making comics and manga. So yeah, I have heard from many professionals that work on comics that indeed Clip Studio Paint is the software of choice for them.
So we have a couple questions. I've got one here from Ilham. Couldn't quite tell. It's kind of small on my screen. How to rotate brushes in Clip Studio Paint?
Rotate rotate, like for example, this one is a square. You mean rotate it like that?
So
most of my brushes, if you go to here, window, subtool detail, here most of my brushes have attached to, if I remember correctly, the brush tip. Yeah, here you go. Angle, you see? Here you can attach it dynamically to any property that you want inside your stylus. And here you can see that I have it attached to the direction of the pen. That is why when I rotate my pen, it rotates the orientation of the brush.
Okay.
But if not, then you can just tweak this angle. If you tweak the angle, then it's going to, by default, change. But I generally like right now I'm holding my pencil like this, and the brush is like that.
Yeah.
Because I like to, use it flat when I lay my pencil flat.
Mm-hmm. This makes sense. The other question that we have here is from Marco, who is asking, is he using the Procreate brushes in CSP? Is that even possible? So no, you're using a set of your brushes that is made natively for CSP, but the versions that we have are available for Procreate predominantly. But they can get those with you on your website where it's made natively for CSP.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Most of the work of creating the brushes is like 50-50. Like you have 50% of the work creating a brush pack that I actually enjoy using, where I'm painting and I'm like, I'm missing a tool that is a little bit grainier. What do I create? And then I go and I create something. That is part of the job. But then the other half for me is actually turning it into different softwares, and it's a lot of work. Making sure that the software actually that the brushes behave the same in different softwares is a lot of work, to the point that lately I have actually been hiring people to help me out doing that, people that can that are good with the brush studios in different apps. It saves a lot of work, and it's a bit more of a technical work, so I feel confident giving it to somebody to help me out with those.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was correcting some stuff over here. Someone pointed out an error in the link in the chat, so I've corrected that now. So cool. Use that link in there, guys. Another question that we had, this was from Ryan in the chat. He says, when you have a bad drawing day, what do you do to regain your tempo and rhythm? You were actually kind of talking about this before the stream actually started.
That is right. The number one thing that you don't do on a bad drawing day is go on a live stream. Just kidding. No, it happens. Like, what can you do? It happens. Bad drawing days do happen oftentimes. That is my belief. You don't have to believe me, but it's what I think. They don't have anything to do with drawing. It actually has to do with the rest of your life. Like, for example, when I'm really tired or really stressed, or I have this problem about, I don't know, family or whatever, then my mind is there and it's not on the drawing. That messes me up. Regaining tempo, normally sleeping it off, like the next day, once I am not tired or not concerned about whatever it was, I can get back in here and draw. Generally, grabbing the artwork from somebody that you like. For example, you can see these guys right here. This is, let me see if I can. This is a beautiful book. It's Framed Ink by Marcos Mateu Mestre. Beautiful book. I have it, I have all of them right there. So what I do is I put them in here and I get inspired. I try to do the same thing that I do with Pinterest, but I do it in here. That means I see their work and I try to combine different things, like, the way that the hair is for this one right here, plus the facial expression of this one right here. It creates something original out of it, but at the same time, I was able to study an artist that inspires me. So usually that gets me going.
Yeah, I also noticed you don't even just limit it to something that I think that you're well known for working in, like a 2D medium with the book. In the background there, I think it's a Ben Eblin bust that you've got in there too.
Oh yeah, that is Mr. Ben Eblin right there. I was very happy when I got it. It's these type of tools are fantastic. Right here is this guy. This guy I use all the time whenever I need to create something like the monster that I'm trying to draw in here, that has a little bit more wrinkles, a little bit more detail, more plain detail, I guess. And this one is very, very helpful. But the bend and blend one is fantastic whenever you want to create something that is a bit more simple, stylized, pixely type of style. And so yeah, no, these are great tools. I find that surrounding yourself with things from artists that you like is really good.
Mhm.
Here on the other side, this I mean, you can inspire by yourself also, like that guy, that
Absolutely.
Spider-Man. Where is it? This one is it represents a nice thing for me. This one was the first YouTube video that I created, making that guy on Procreate, that got 1 million views, and it meant something special to me. So
Mhm.
so so yeah. And I have it there as a memory, but this one is one that I have more than a memory. I have it actually for myself, for education purposes. So I made this little stylized anatomy reference sheet for myself, and have it here next to me. So every time that I need to remember, like, where did the deltoid connect, then I look at
Yeah.
that thing.
No, I love that you got all these resources around you, especially those that you made yourself. That makes it that much more personal, and it makes you recall the memory of having made it, like deepening that knowledge.
Exactly. I think when I realized that surrounding yourself with things that are inspiring actually gets into your head. It was when I was just like barely a teenager. I made a little acrylic study of Michelangelo's Da Vinci. No, Da Vinci,
Mm.
Da Vinci. Michelangelo's David. You know,
Michelangelo's Da Vinci.
yeah, Michelangelo's
I
David.
like this though.
Right? Uh, that one I made in acrylic, and I posted next to myself, like on a wall, so that I could see it all the time.
Mhm.
And one day I tried to make a portrait, I think of a friend or something. And once it was finished, it didn't look anything like my friend, but it looked exactly like the David. And that is exactly like it. And I was like, okay, well, so having that thing pasted on the wall for a year and a half, it actually made a difference. It got ingrained in my head. So
Mhm.
so yeah, I think that surrounding yourself with good art actually puts it in your head somehow.
Yeah, I would very much agree. Yeah, and honestly, the other thing that I do often try to remind people of is that you don't have to necessarily even be inspired just by things that are in the style of things that you make. I think there's so often that people, they're like, like I'm a comic artist, or I do mostly like manga and anime, but you can still have a bunch of other art around you that you go to look at that isn't in the style that you're trying to make. You don't have to just like the things that you make, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that in fact it might be even better for you, because that way you're always expanding what you normally create. If
Hmm.
you have a bunch of things that look exactly like what you do every single day, you might get a little bit trapped. That's my intuition about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there was one other one in here. Joel asked, "How long is the Proko summer sale going for?" This is going until July 6th. So you guys have just a couple more weeks of time to be able to pick things up for 20% off, like Lucas's brushes that you're seeing right now, the brand new brush pack. Lucas, I'm going to steal the screen capture for a second.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm gonna remove this one and add this in. So if you guys see what's on my screen here, we've got the Lucas halftone Procreate brushes, watercolors, inking brushes, the traditionalizer that gave us those nice textures that you saw in the background, and then the painting brushes. Each of these are fantastic in their own right, and they do have a little bit of overlap between them, with some painting brushes across some of them, a little bit of sketching or some inking. But each of them do have like a more specific focus. For anyone who is more of an inking person, like might be pulled in by the thumbnail we've got on this for this particular stream today, you can see some different qualities that are in here. There's some really good stuff. There's that Tokyo brush that you were talking about earlier on this
Hmm.
Wolverine. And there's a bunch of different textures in here, different tools that aren't just like a bunch of different pens or a bunch of different brushes. There's some truly different, unique quality materials in here. So you guys can get those for 20% off for the whole rest of this month and a few days of next month. I recommend it.
Yeah,
Here's
absolutely. go ahead and try those inking brush. For some reason, they seem to be one of people's favorites. It's still to this day my best seller, even though I have released 3 more packs after this one. But the inking one, for some reason, gets a lot of love. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think people are always looking for something that does what feels like a pretty simple job for inking tools. Like it's such a like a finite range of motion for some of them, but it doesn't feel authentic, So people are trying to get the most authentic and realistic feeling one of something that does a basic job. And so many of them just miss the mark.
That could be. When I was creating these tools, I felt like a lot of them had a bunch of variety, but they felt very digital, and a lot of them have much less variety. If they actually emulated traditional media, they have very, very little variety. So you were stuck with just a couple of textures, and that was that. Like, if you didn't like them, then too bad. So those are the things that I try to correct in mind. Something that feels traditional all the way through, but also that gives you enough choice for you to create different effects.
Misaki in the chat asked, are you using smoothness on the lines? Do you have any sort of smoothing for the motion of your strokes?
Let me see. I actually don't remember. I think that I put a little bit of it in all of them. Let me see if there is correction. Where is the correction in here? I always forget, jumping from Photoshop to Clip Studio Paint to Procreate.
Yeah.
Procreate, I mean stroke. Yeah, I think this is it. Nope. Correct velocity input. Not super sure. Gotta admit, not super sure. I feel like I added a little bit of there you go, correction. There you go, stabilization. Yeah, 2 in there. Okay. Just enough, and a little bit of taper so that it feels smoother than in real life. If you get the Procreate version of these guys, they have a tiny bit more correction because there I just like it more. So, so there you go.
No, I think that's fair, especially because the way that each different tool and the inputs of it work, like each across different like hardware situations, it will just feel different. And iPad is kind of more like I find myself using more smoothing for strokes as well in Procreate or in any software. I don't know if it's because of the way that the stylus actually handles while you're holding it or the screen size, but I definitely end up being more smooth on there as well.
Yeah, I think it might be the size of the screen now that you say that, because here I can move my elbow around and that makes my strokes smoother, but there I cannot. So yeah, I think that you're right about it, Stephen.
Are you doing a little lightning bolt kind of suggestion with the background there?
Exactly. I thought it would be fun to make something lightning boltish. Let me see if I grab something like this flat knife, so that, and this is something else that I love about Clip Studio Paint. You can use the brushes negative or positive very quickly. You don't have to switch between eraser and brush. So here, if you paint with this one, you're painting, but very quickly you press and you're painting with transparency the same brush. So I don't have to go search in between all the brushes again for that tool, select it as an eraser, and come back. So,
that is great. I like that very much.
It is pretty good. So with this one, I think that maybe like a little suggestion like this. And again, I'm using the tapering of the brush, the fact that it's flat, so that it gives me automatically some line variety. Something like that. There you go. I guess that's interesting.
It's got a good energy to him.
Yeah, he's shocked about something. Okay. Yeah, there you go. Now, because we are, so these are the inking pack. And by the way, for this one, I was using the flat brushes in here, and you can see that this is just the way that I prefer to use the brushes. I use layers because why not? They're free in digital. You can create new layers for everything. So I have here my base inking. Then I have in here these guys that were done with the flat dry. to create just a tiny bit of darkness without actually having to go and render anything. And then these little lines that, again, help me create some direction and some volume or suggestion of volume without having to do much work. That one was we already said the flat sharp. So this one, you can see is like that, just so that you can make a lot of strokes at the same time. And now, because that was the inking pack, I want to just, give an insinuation of the halftone pack, because we have it there in the store, and it is a great pack. It's the first one that I released, but of course, it doesn't get the maybe the protagonism that it should, because it's mostly halftones, so it's mostly textures. So I have a mask right here for a whole guy, and this one, let's just make it completely white. And what I'm going to do is create a new layer, clip it to this guy, and we're going to go to the halftone pack. Now, the halftone pack, if you're looking to get into comics and just get a pack that is going to give you a very good inker and the whole set of texture halftones for you to use, this is a good option, because you have in here 3 bonus brushes. This is one of my favorite sketching tools. It's called the LP Blue Pencil. And it's smooth. So you gotta give it a try. Still, even though I have released many more brushes after this, people tell me that they still use this one as their sketching tool. So that makes me very happy. You have also a very sharp, still with a tiny bit of grain, inker, in case that you're looking for something basic to just ink everything that you need. And then you have the fine liner anime, which is a very useful tool if you want to create single thickness artworks. It's pretty useful. And if you make it pretty big or bigger, you can have this very grungy texture that is great for making borders and things like that. So
yeah,
okay.
There's a friend of mine who does have so he's a massive fan of texture. He was a fiend using screen tones, like traditional screen tones, for a long time. And he actually uses your pack exclusively for doing stuff for his screen tones now.
That is fantastic. I love to hear that. Thank you very much for telling me that. That makes me very happy.
Yeah, he decided that it was good. Like, it actually did the thing that he was looking for from traditional stuff. And so I haven't seen him buy screen tones in quite some time.
I love that. Thank you for telling me. Yeah, these guys are meant to be used very simply. Like, you have in here different types of patterns. So you have vertical, clean, vertical, dirty, horizontal, clean, horizontal, dirty. And the difference between those, if you want to see that, let me see. The difference between the clean and dirty is that the clean ones are very perfect. So, for example, let's say this cross-hatching dirty, 30%. The percentage, by the way, is the density of those. So you have this one, and you can see that it's dirty, so it has a tiny bit of texture by default. It's not absolutely perfect. And then you have the cross-hatching clean, that is right here, 30% also, that this one is clean. Still not perfect, because I really don't like the idea of like perfect digital textures. So this one is going to give you a tiny bit of texture, but not nearly as much as the dirty one. And they have the flexibility that you can change the scale, and they're completely seamless. So for example, this one, you see, is this size, dots clean 50%, but you can come in here to the scale ratio and just change the size like that. And if you match the size, like for example, I'm going to put in here 80. Okay, this one is 80. Now you can come to the, let's say, descending dirty, 30%, and you match it, the size, 80. And now you can have patterns that completely match for you to create different effects.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty useful if you want to create these more comic textures. A lot of times, honestly, like the ones that I use the most are these shaders right here, because the shaders have all the patterns. But let me see if I find it. Dot shader dirty. This is the one that I use the most. This one has the quality that the stronger that you press, that more
I see.
the texture is. So I really like them for that.
Yeah, it's like letting you kind of like spray on the texture almost.
Exactly, exactly. So if you add it there a little bit, we can create a tiny bit of shading without having to really go overboard. Or you can just directly go to, something strong. That's dirty 50%. Let's make this guy smaller. Maybe this size. Let's see. And just slap a big half-tone texture over the whole thing. And then you can lower the opacity and create very nice effects very quickly.
Yeah, no, I like this. I don't think I had ever seen that particular one with the kind of like diagonal lines to it.
Hey, useful stuff for you to differentiate, between backgrounds and characters and stuff like that. So maybe something like this, and then we can come in here and actually, erase it from the places that we don't want. Like for example, the eyes, we can bring back in, and the teeth, let's say, and we can create a bit of a contrast. That the suggestion that this guy is colored or shaded without having to do much at all.
Heck yeah. And now, are you going to use these exact same inks going over into the other mediums that you're going to use?
I think I might. The watercolor, you can use it with, or let's say the sketch can work very nicely with watercolor, so that the line is not that present. But yeah, I think that it would be cool to use this same one for the watercolor. So let's just go and grab it. Let's close this folder. This one inking. We can leave it like that. And let's duplicate this friend and put it inside the group. And we're going to call this guy watercolor.
There was one question here from Crazy Apple asking, do you guys like using Clip Studio Paint or Procreate? Yes, we like using Clip Studio Paint or Procreate. Right now, what Lucas is using is CSP, as Misaki had mentioned in response to you in the chat. But they're all fantastic tools. They each have their individual strengths, but there's not really any like actively bad drawing tools out there at this point. I don't think. I don't know how you feel, Lucas. Like, have you used any of like the big software and just been like, no, this is trash garbage?
There are some out there that I just think are slower. Okay, don't hate on me, but Procreate is fantastic. I love it. It's great. It's just, if I need to do something that is a little bit more elaborate, I am gonna not use Procreate because it takes me a long time to get into the menus, to do all the shortcuts and everything. Here I have a keyboard, so that means I can do everything much faster. All the menus are completely visible because I'm using this on a computer. So yeah, for that I like that. But bad tool it is not. It's just not my preference if I'm gonna do something that is very, very elaborate.
Yeah, no, I got you. Like, as much as I like Procreate, it operates kind of like having like a Moleskine sketchbook or something in my backpack on the iPad, where Photoshop is where I'm gonna sit down if I'm gonna like really get into something, do layers and layers of color, possibly have to use other tools like gradients and having like text elements. I'll open something on a computer.
Yes, I think that is the difference between those. So yeah, bad tools for sure. There are some out there, but I haven't tried them. Like if you go to the App Store or the Android
store,
I'm sure you're gonna find some not very good painting apps right there.
Yeah. There'd be one that's called like Real Paint or some other like dumb name like that. That's gonna suck. Like that happens.
Yeah, that is completely true. So those I don't even use unless I'm gonna make a YouTube video about like the worst apps on the App Store. Then
I like this idea. You're just taking around one of your most optimized brushes and saying like, will it load into different software? That's not a bad video idea.
Yeah, no, you're right. That is a good one. Maybe I should give that a try.
So for this one, you're switching over to some of your watercolor brushes from your watercolor pack?
Exactly. So this one is, there are different ways for you to approach watercolor in traditional and in digital. So here I'm using a layer as the base of the drawing. for me to get clean selections, because it's just faster. I mean, I already had it from the inking, so why not? And I am attaching different colors to it. That is going to be, these are like the local colors of my guy. It doesn't have to be green and red. I'm just filling them up with some color right now, just to have them in different places. Let me just show you a little bit of how the watercolor brushes work, because they are, they're the latest pack, and God, it took me so much work to make these brushes. So let me just share how much work it took me. So these guys they include a very nice HP pencil, great for sketching, but softly. It has a nice liner that is similar to the one from the half-tone pack, but this one is a little bit rougher. And then it has a nice brush pen. Again, because I don't want people to just get a pack of watercolors and not be able to use them. So if you just want to get these watercolors and not any other tool, here you're going to have some very nice brush pen for you to ink whatever you want, and also this one right here, that are going to be enough. And of course, a nice sketching tool for you to play with. So you're going to come, it's going to come with those bonus, and then you're going to have fine brushes, round, flat, cloudy, and some other ones. But you're going to spend most of the time here on the fine, round, and flat sections. All of them come with a bleedy, wet, clean, texture, and dry. So you have the same ones in here, round. It has bleedy, wet, clean, texture, and dry. Because if there is something that I like about brushes is to have them organized. I think that digital painting is complex enough for you to get lost in a myriad of brushes that you don't know how to use. So here you have the bleedy that is going to have a bit of a thicker edge. You have the wet if you want to create effects like wet on wet. You have the clean if you want to create really sharp and clean lines. Textured, which has just a little bit more of a grimy texture in there. And the dry one if you want to create some, like dry on dry effects, like at the end of the painting, you want to add some texture. So you have, these are the fine ones if you want to add details, but you have the same for the round and the same for the flat, depending on the shape of the brush that you want to use.
I appreciate you going through them. Yeah, I think a thing that people don't often think about is the idea that you bought this whole brush pack that has, like 100 brushes or something, but realistically, you're going to use only a few of them. And that's not a reason not to buy any certain brush pack. It's that the pack is there for people who want generally that idea of those tools, but you don't need all of them for what it is that you do. Because like, even if I was a person who did watercolor, chances are I don't sit there with every single type of watercolor brush they sell in a store, like a physical art store either. You have a few things that you need, like 4 to 5 maybe, and that's it. That's fine.
Yeah, you have your favorite tools, and here, it has enough that hopefully you're going to find those favorite tools in the pack.
Now, there was a question in here. So this was Marius was asking, do you also draw in the traditional way with pencil and paper? Do you find yourself drawing traditionally?
I have been doing it more lately, because for the longest time, it was a matter of time. I was, as I told you before, I make a living out of my digital art. So that means whenever I had time to draw, I would draw digitally, because it's my job. So that it made it really hard for me to spend time drawing traditionally, because I couldn't just justify it unless it would be for fun, like going on vacations or something like that. I would take a sketchbook. But now that is changing. I feel like maybe it was AI, coming and making me ask myself, like, why am I arting?
What's the point even?
Exactly. Like, why did I even learn where the tricep inserts? So now that I have that in my head, I said, like, you know what? I'm gonna grab a freaking sketchbook. Like I'm just gonna draw. And I have been drawing a little bit more, not as much, but a little bit, enough for me to have some fun.
Yeah. No, it's important to kind of journey out from the thing that you normally do. For, let's say, even if it wasn't a difference between digital and traditional, for a person who was working as just traditionally like an illustrator to go out and do something like sculpting every once in a while, just kind of break things up, bring in some new knowledge that might have gained a new context because you had to use it in a different way. You'd probably come back with a greater knowledge of 3D space, or in some other way working as a sculptor who then tries working in illustration. It just makes you more fully fleshed out.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that it's a very important thing for artists to keep playing. At the end of the day, like, this is what we do. Like, we're here. Like look at that. I'm making a monster. Why am I making a monster? It doesn't have any reason for existing other than it is fun to make. So the process itself is the objective, and by creating, you're fulfilling your art. So that means, this answers the question that I have gotten a few times on my artwork, saying like, hey, why bother? Just use AI. And to that, like, yeah, like, maybe for a moment I asked myself, like, why bother? But then I realized, like, no, like, why bother is because making the art is the objective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be some like, people will pay me to make this. Even you can just make art to make art. That's what we did when we were kids.
Exactly. That is how most of us started. So why not keeping it?
So what you're doing right now, you had laid down the brush strokes with your watercolor brushes, and now you're kind of going through and changing the color to see what sticks.
Yeah, just trying to see what color combination goes together. I like the idea of the red. At the start, it was just a first idea. I thought it was not going to work, but the more that I see it, the more I like it. Red seems to work fine. So it's striking, it's powerful, so maybe I'll keep it. I'm just now covering these little pieces of white that I have, so I'm grabbing another brush and going a little bit deeper. There are many ways of doing the watercolor. You can go and check out the images of the demos that I have made with these watercolor brushes. They're all over the place. You have something that looks a little bit more transparent, so you have some that are a bit more opaque, cartoony. So this is not meant to be the only process that you can make, but it's what I'm feeling for this guy. It's a little bit more opaque, a little bit more cartoony, and yeah, I think that opaque colors go nicely with that. Now, on top of this, I think that starting to add some shadows that are a bit more glazy is going to work fine. So I'm just going to create a new layer in here, put it in multiply mode, and this is one of the advantages of digital media. You preserve all your textures, so that means I can come in here, add my shadows, but I don't have to lock in the decision of the local colors. I can come back later and change those. So for something like this, I think that a wet on wet brush will work the best. So let's see this round wet one and see how it works.
What is it that makes you think that the wet on wet would work best?
Because if I would be making this on real watercolor, I would imagine that I'm not letting these colors dry completely, because I don't want like a very cell shaded type of shadow. I want still a little bit of bleeding into the colors. So I would make this as the first layer of shadows that is more a little bit more cloudy, let's say. So I'm going to come in here and start adding those shadows. Again, a little bit cloudy.
There might be some people in the chat who, even if they haven't used watercolor as much or some other more wet medium, you've probably used something like an alcohol marker, and you can have that experience where if you use one that's really juicy, or you really like ran it over the paper several times, it'll still be kind of moist when you go to bring the next one in, and the colors kind of like diffuse and they kind of meld together a little bit more than if you had let it dry and then you took the other marker on top of that. Really similar kind of thing to that.
Exactly. It allows you to have different types of edges. So instead of having every edge be hard edge, you can have a little bit of a variety. So I don't know. I find that at least for this workflow, I like the results that it gives me to have first a softer shadow that I'm going to slowly apply with different layers, all of them in multiply mode, I think. And then I can come at the end and add a hard shadow to really like tie things down.
Yeah, no, I like this idea. As a person who I do a very similar thing to what you did here with line weights, where I like putting in the little spot black kind of sections where you have like a full dark occlusion shadow. Do you ever find yourself having placed these and it locks you into what the lighting situation is? Where
Completely.
okay.
Yeah. Now that I put the shadow under the chin, like I cannot just come in and put the light from below. So that is a decision that you have to stick with. Like that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So what I would say is I would try to imagine from the start, like what is it that I'm going to do. If this would be a storytelling illustration where I, like let's say this guy is waking up and he has the lightning bolt coming from below, then I would plan that in the illustration and make sure that it fits before locking in the inking.
Yeah. No, it can be hard to push back against when it becomes more of like a habit to have that hard occlusion shadow. But as long as it's not ever like a big problem for you, I think it's fine. It gives some nice energy to the lines.
I think so too. Even if the light would come from below in this case, I think that people would buy it. Like it's at the end of the day, it's more that than anything. Like, will your viewers buy it?
Yeah.
If of course that is the purpose of the piece. There are many pieces that are not gonna be for a viewer. They're for yourself. And if you are doing it and you buy it, then that's great.
Yeah. If you already know that you would buy into it, that's a pretty good example. This is actually why I end up editing the Proko shorts, like for vertical videos and stuff, because my attention span is so low that if I get bored of it, someone else is gonna get bored of it.
That's really good. Yeah, I think that's true. There are some people out there like us, so you can use yourself as a how would you say, measuring stick, maybe?
Yeah, a nice baseline.
Exactly, like the baseline.
I think so. There were a couple other questions in here. Carlos Rue was asking, I think, about your book stand. They asked, what do you call the thing behind you that has your book open to your left, Lucas? And where did you buy it?
Oh, I think it is just a book holder, and bought it from Amazon very recently. I had the problem of I couldn't use the books that I had in here because I had to hold them open with one hand and draw with the other one. But then how would I use the keyboard for the shortcuts? So I ended up, like, I was always using a second monitor for me to put the references on. And at some point I said, like, what a waste. I have all of these art books in here. I want to use them. I just need a way to keep them open. So yeah, I got this guy, has little legs to keep the pages where they should be. It has been pretty good. I use it to hold my phone when I'm having lunch also. So it is also good for that.
It's a good twofer. I like this. There was another one here. Mario is asking, have you ever tried painting with oil or watercolor? Lucas, have you tried painting with oil color or watercolor, oil or watercolor? Or did you just jump into making your brush pack, emulating those things without ever having used them?
Imagine I would say, like, yes, I have never, and I will never use real media. Long live digital. No, yeah, of course I have used it. Am I a master of it? Of course. No, just no. I'm barely decent. Like I can barely understand how watercolors work in real media,
Mhm.
But it's enough for me to come in here and say like, yeah, this works like it should be on the paper. And then I would go back to the paper, create more samples, and say like, okay, like I don't seem to get it. Let me see how wet on wet happens with a flat brush. And I would do it, and I'll be like, okay, let me see how I get this thing in digital media.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an absolute. You have to try traditional media, otherwise, yeah, these tools would lose the purpose completely.
Yeah, no, and don't take him saying that he's not a master of it as being him being bad at it and still trying to emulate this thing. There's an actual like a watercolor instructor who's a fantastic watercolor artist that we work with, named Liron, who also downplays his skill with watercolor. And each individual artist is like, oh, I don't really do it the traditional way for this. So it sounds like everyone who ever uses it is bad and everyone uses it the wrong way. So it sounds like there's no right way and everyone is great.
That's very nice of you to say. I will. I don't know. Maybe he is a master, but yeah, I don't know if I am.
I think you use it well. And I can definitely say through personal experience that the brushes that you've made for this, for watercolor and for oil, do feel to me like a pretty solid, like a solid corollary for the traditional tools. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here, Lucas. If they were bad, they couldn't pay me to host this live stream with you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. They're fun to create. They're a challenge, and yeah, people seem to like it. And like hell, whenever I make them, I always tell my wife like, what if nobody likes them? What if only I like
This will be my first brush pack that sells no copies.
Exactly. Like I'm always worried about it, and then she tells me like, please, like, come on, just look at the reviews. And yeah, indeed, people really like that. Like if you go to I guess my website, I don't know if they're in Proko. I think that a couple of packs have the reviews there, but yeah, on my website you can read the people's reviews, and they seem to. Some of them are actually a bit overwhelming. Like for this watercolor pack, my wife was just sent me the reviews, and she said like, "Did you read the reviews?" And I said like, "Yeah, what the hell."
what was it that they said?
I don't know, like this is what I have been waiting all my life. Thank you, Lucas. Now I can finally unleash my creativity the way that I wanted to. And I was like, all right, they're Procreate brushes, please.
Yeah,
I'm not solving your marriage, but glad that you like them.
So it's crazy. I didn't know if you had read my review or not, but it sounds like you did read my review. So that's really cool.
That was you there. Thank you. What do you say of adding a little bit of color to his skin like that? Is it too much?
I like the idea of the color. I don't know if red would be it.
Let's see what do we have.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So like
Yeah?
something cooler, because it would, so the thing that we're doing with the color would be it being blood showing below his skin, right?
I guess so, right?
Yeah, it's like I like the like a little bit of like off orange you had, so not necessarily full red.
Okay, let me go back to that off orange. Yeah,
Yeah,
that looks a little bit. It blends better with the green, right?
Yeah, because it's the complementary.
Yeah, that's better for sure than the red. Otherwise, it was a bit too much.
But yeah, no, I like the idea of having the color pops in there. I think it's one of the most surefire little shortcuts to make something go from being just flat to having some more life to it.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, let's go with that one. And now what I'm gonna do, like if you see the organization of the layers, so I have the flat colors down here, right? And this one is the color variation. I like to keep everything separated because, as you saw before, like it was red, I changed it back to green. The shadow was purple. I changed it to, I guess this is also green. So it gives me a lot of control with all the layers. So I usually like to keep them until the very end, until like everything is locked. But as long as I can hold them, I like to keep them separated. So now what I'm going to do is I have this multiply layer right here that's creating kind of like a soft type of general shadow. So maybe if we create a new one, still in multiply mode, we select a very similar color. And this time we go with the with a harder brush. So I'm thinking something like this, fine, wet. You know, we went from the round, wet, right here, that is a little bit fluffier, a little bit softer. Now we can go to the fine wet, and it's going to give us a tiny bit more control and harder shadows. So we can go darker and thinner. That way we can accentuate the detail without really wasting a lot of time.
Yeah, it blends nicely right now too.
Right, right. And if you need anything, you can go down here and you have these smudgers. So you can just select any of these guys. For example, this smudge soft or smudge fuzzy. Smudge fuzzy is very nice for that. And oops,
Look at that texture. Just linger on this for a minute, guys. Let your eyes really take in the thing that you're seeing up close with all this natural feeling texture. I think anyone would be forgiven for the idea of thinking that it was realistic, or like not realistic, that it was real as a scan.
I'm very happy that you say that, yeah, because it is that is my objective. And you know, when I share these things, a lot of people actually tell me that it's a real watercolor. So yeah. It's the magic, you know, it's the brushes, but it's also the textures from the traditionalizer. You know, they add a lot. They add a lot. So, this texture, sorry?
Oh, go ahead.
The textures, the watercolor pack comes by default already with 3 textures, so you don't have to go and get the traditionalizer. If you want to get a little bit of the of those textures, you're going to get the ones that I'm using for this guy come by default with a pack.
Nice. Yeah, the other thing I would say is that, so if you were working on something that was going to be more comic booky style, you expect the idea of the colors to be really clean and really precise. You know, there's nothing that overlaps the lines. But if you're working in something that's like watercolor, there's just a variation that happens naturally. So in here, people can see where you're not being necessarily super precious with where you're filling in, where plane changes are implied by the actual lines themselves. Like just below the nose there was a little bit that overlapped, you know, from the brow going onto that bolt on the side of the screen, closer to the color picker. There's some green that overlapped onto that bolt. That's just, these are hallmarks of those traditional tools. So knowing what you're going to do and adjusting for what the medium is supposed to be is also really important.
I think so. I think so too. If you like the feeling of traditional media, you gotta treat digital the right way. You cannot treat it as perfect as it allows you to be, which is a trap that I think a lot of beginners in digital painting fall into, or maybe I'm just assuming because it was a thing that I fell into.
It's definitely true.
Because I was, you know, you crave control when you're working on traditional. It's the thing that you're missing the most is, you know, you put a little bit of paint in there and the watercolor just like bleeds around and goes, and you're like, no, but that was my white. I wanted to preserve my whites. So when you come into digital allows you to now have all of that control. So what we tend to do when we come from traditional is that we embrace that control and we over exaggerate it. It's just like now we have control for absolutely everything. And yeah, then your artwork looks like the typical digital artwork that is airbrushes and super clean lines and vector tools and no texture at all. So yeah, no.
Yeah, no, it's good to like actually let some nature take over. That way you don't have to worry about it so much.
Right. Also, like you enjoy it more. Like, imagine if I would come in here and I'm like, no, it's going overlapping this line a little bit. Nah, come on. Like, nobody's gonna see that. Enjoy yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, no, and don't make yourself work on something that's 1% of the screen size. Like that's not a healthy way to exist.
Exactly.
Monte Cristo in the chat asked, "Is the background textured or is it the brushes that create it?" Lucas, do you want to explain?
Yeah, absolutely. The background right here, right now is just pure textures. If I open the folder and here you see you have a screen texture, overlay texture, and multiply texture. All of them are in the specific mode that the name implies. So this one is adding that bit of color. The overlay is adding the 3D feeling. And the screen is adding those white dots on your illustration. if you have, for example, too much out of any of them, let's say that you want it a little bit cleaner, you just reduce the opacity of that screen, and you're going to have immediately a cleaner illustration without all of that white. Of course, or you can add more. But the brushes by themselves, like if you want to see how the brushes look without the textures, you can open in here. Let's create a new layer, and the brushes themselves have already quite a bit of texture. So you can see that you can use the texture of the brushes by themselves to create a background, but if you combine it with those textures, is when it really, like it really comes together, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and like you had mentioned that for the packs, like the watercolor pack here, you do have some textures that are already included in that pack. They're not just exclusive to your traditionalizer pack, which is mostly textures and other like beating the textures up kind of things.
Exactly, because I didn't want to, like tell people. Most of my demos have these textures, and I didn't want to tell people that you have to go and get two packs for you to get the same results. I wanted to make sure that what you see is what you get.
Yeah, the paper is such a big portion of working with watercolor, so it was good that you included those in there.
Exactly. Not super sure about this shadow right here, but I think that it might be time for us to move to the oil one.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm gonna leave this guy like this, and see, and maybe we can come back later if there is any more detail for us to add. But you can work this thing until you want. Like if you want to really polish this thing and add all the little shadows, of course you can. But I think that this would be enough for a nice Halloween poster. So,
Yeah. No, I agree. Can you take us through where we started from with the sketch to the inks to the watercolor there before we move on?
Absolutely. So let's go and put we start with the inks right here. But do you want to see this one and then that one?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Perfect. So we start the stream with just our friend in sketch mode without this and this. So just the line work. And then we try to make a bit of a mapping just so that we can have some insinuation of shadows and for me to understand the figure a little bit better in 3D. Then for the inking, we combine it with, let me see, inking. We added a couple of layers of halftones and a couple of layers of effects to create that final look. Now that I see it, I think that the halftones might be a little bit strong, so let me just lower them a tiny bit more. And now for our watercolor, we use the base of the inking with the same mask, local colors, and then slowly shading with one layer, then the other one.
Yeah, it's looking great. I'm curious to see where you take this for the next step with the oils.
Oh, wow. All right, let's see. Okay. Let's see if we can make something. And that one, usually you can polish it a little bit more. So let's hope it comes out nicely. For that one, I think I'm going to be using the sketch because I don't want the line to be very present. So let's grab our first layer of the sketch and duplicate it. I think it is this one right here. Yeah. So I'm going to duplicate this guy, create a new folder, organization, rocks.
Yeah, always name your layers, always name your folders. Do yourself a favor.
Yeah, it keeps your life organized. So let's put it in here.
Nixant in the chat gave us a tip and said, "Thank you for all the amazing content." Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Nixant. I think I recognize the name Nixant.
They followed you here? So we have you to thank for this tip.
Yes. Let's see if this one is... I'm duplicating the mask from the previous one just because I don't want to create it again. But it looks like because I created the mask for the inking, I will have to repair it just a tad. So I'm going to use maybe the liner from the watercolor pack because it's pretty harsh or it's pretty hard, has full opacity to just fix right here the little holes that we have.
So you guys can already see how much texture there is with that background already. again, it's like the thing that we were mentioning earlier, where there's just some things that you assume that you'll see when you're dealing with different mediums. And so for the situation with oil, you probably would have already put down some sort of wash, and it's not going to be like heavily textured, like as far as being a really thick paint, but there's still going to be a little bit in there because no one really like takes time and has this like fully even, smooth, thin wash, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, this is these layers are, created out of real samples. So this was, again, me and my wife in the kitchen, just putting oil on a canvas and waiting it for it to dry, and putting a bit of an impasto texture,
Nice.
and cracking liquid, just to make some textures that feel like the real thing, and then scanning everything, bringing it in here, just so we can have that,
Nice.
like that is just a mask. We haven't even painted anything, but with just those textures, it's, I don't know, feels better.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I think that maybe we can make this guy a different color than the previous one, just for the lols.
Just for funsies.
Yeah. No, nobody says that, right? Like that is
No,
like
no.
a thing from like 2005.
Yeah, none now. I think once PewDiePie stopped streaming like Five Nights at Freddy's, Lols was
Yeah.
pretty much gone.
Oh man, Stephen, don't remind me of my age. That's just sad. Just
I'm right
me,
there with you, dude. We both have white in our facial hair.
Yes. Oh man, the sadness. No, it's okay. It's badges of honor, right?
Exactly.
Oh my God. All
So
right, let's see what we're gonna do with this guy.
this one's going to be a little more specific, I think, for people who might already have a specific, like a more practical grasp on having done a sketch, and then having inked something, and then having done something that's more like traditional kind of comic colors, where it's almost more cell shady. Working in like a painting kind of way with oils, where you're working in color blocks rather than hard lines, I think will be an interesting one for people to see. So if you guys have any questions, please do ask them in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Questions are welcome. I cannot vouch. How do you say that thing, for the quality of my answers?
Yeah. No,
Because
I'll vouch for it even if you can't. I believe in you.
Thank you. So, again, then if there is a pack that is versatile and it doesn't have a strict workflow, is this one. I called it painting, but as you can see, then I released a watercolor pack. So you can even find some wet type of glazy brushes inside this pack if you want to. But the way that I use it is specific. So I will share with you the way that I normally use the brushes in this pack, and you can at least see what is possible. But of course, you can just take it everywhere that you want. Normally, just like I showed you before, I like to use layers because it keeps my things organized. It saves me time, and I say, why not? So what I'm gonna do first is separate, just like I did with the inking, separate this thing into local colors. It's just generally a good practice in digital, because it allows me to then change the color of individual things. But for this one, I'm going to use not an fully opaque brush. What I like to do is make a base of a very saturated color first, so that I can see it through my colors. So let me see if I can show you what I mean. I'm gonna grab this guy, lock the opacity, and start putting some texture in there. So let's see if we can grab, let me see which one. It has been a while since I have been using this pack, because of course I have been focused on the watercolor. But
it's like returning home, though.
Exactly. It's coming back. There you go. Yeah, this texturegram I used all the time. So just putting a bit of color in there. I'm trying to put hue variation, not a lot of value variation, because I want to still control what I'm doing. But I want these colors to peek through my local colors. It's like a little base. I have this just as a as an aesthetic element, it doesn't help me with anything of the painting right now. Maybe later it will. Maybe it will influence the color of the shadows or something. Okay, now that we have this, let's grab a brush, like for example, this dry block, and let's actually put the local colors. For those local colors, I'm not sure what I'm gonna go with, but maybe finally, yeah, well, maybe we're going to make this guy. What about like a purple, and then we will change the color of this one later. Maybe like a saturated purple. And you can see that I'm using a brush, this dry block, that is not completely opaque. So it's gonna allow that color to peek through.
And what is it that has you doing this in the small short strokes that you're doing it in right now? Like, why are you choosing to do that way?
Part of it is just to vary the texture even more, but also part of it is that this canvas with the amount of layers that it has, it's getting a bit slow. So I cannot make a single stroke. And then I would have to just wait for a couple of seconds for it to finish loading. So yeah, it's part one and the other one. The brushes Eclipse Studio Paint for some reason are a little bit more expensive processing wise than in Photoshop. So at least that is my experience. My brushes in Eclipse Studio Paint are slower than if you use them in Photoshop or in Procreate.
Okay, no, that make I could see it being some sort of artifact of them also having part of the brush engine devoted to doing vectors as well.
Could be.
Like this like I would understand why that would be the case, but
it could be. It's a little bit annoying sometimes, but honestly, you get used to it really fast.
Yeah,
and it's not a problem with all the brushes. So yeah, oftentimes like this one, for example, flows very nicely. So you don't have an issue with it.
People they get used to this idea that you can have everything any way that you want it, but people are really adaptable. So like a really slow piece of software or something, you can get accustomed to that.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. It's and it's also to bad things. like for example, I don't know if it happens to you, but like every single time that I upgrade any piece of tech, I just cannot go back to the lower
to the old one.
Yeah.
I've definitely done that. I have a newer Mac computer right now, and every once in a while I find myself just going back to my PC because I'm just so accustomed to the whole workflow there.
Right.
It has all the stuff on it that I already want, even though I have the computers connected to the same set of drives, so I have the same resources. I'm just accustomed to that PC.
And don't you, when you go in there, don't you feel in shock?
Like to
go that don't work as nicely as on the other one? Because maybe Mac and PC, it's more of a personal preference type of thing. But what I have in mind is, for example, when let's say, I just got a new phone recently, and I always thought that 60 hertz, was it 60? No, 120 hertz.
Yeah, for 60 frames per second.
Exactly, was not noticeable at all. You would see it on the store and you would be like, yeah, this is like, it's the same. Like, this is nonsense. Why would you pay more for that? But all it took is for me to use that for a while. And now whenever I go back to my old phone for something, I see the screen and it looks like a stop motion.
Yeah, you reacclimated yourself to the other higher frame rate.
Exactly. It happens. So you get used to everything, good things and bad things. You get spoiled also.
There was one summer when I was a kid, and I was I got this TV. I didn't have a TV before, and I wanted to play PlayStation on this TV because now I had a TV in my room. And so I connected the PlayStation that was previously in the living room of our house to it. But it was like there was like a broken thing on it where I had to put it into PAL instead of NTSC. So it was doing a different frame rate. But my PlayStation didn't have that function. And so it would make it look like my screen was kind of like bouncing up and down a little bit. the whole time.
Right?
And for that whole summer, I just played PlayStation that way on this like little
No,
bouncing screen. And after a while, I didn't even know it was happening.
no, yeah, yeah, you can really get used to that. I remember listening to somebody talk about like astronauts wearing like upside down glasses, and you get used to that after like a week or something. I don't know if it's true, but I heard that at some TikTok or something.
It would make sense to me, like, because especially if they had to use something that had them looking through some other viewing element that was just by necessity had to be upside down. Uh, yeah, you would have to get accustomed to it. You can get there.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Maybe
Legion
somebody
of
might
Rome.
have. Sir?
Oh, I was going to bring up one of the comments here.
Yeah, tell me.
Legion of Rome 2 was mentioning, apologies if the question may have already been asked, but do the brushes only work for Clip Studio Paint or could they work for Photoshop? So for Lucas's brushes, as we sell them on Proko, predominantly we have his Proko or Procreate versions of the brushes, besides his Traditionalizer pack, which is for multiple ones. But on Lucas's website itself, you can buy them where they are set up to already be natively loaded into a bunch of different applications.
Yeah, that's right. If you will like me use different softwares, like I jumped from Photoshop for my studio work to Clip Studio Paint for my personal work, and for Procreate for demos, and when I am not around the office, I like to use the same tools everywhere. Otherwise, it messes me up. I'm like,
Mhm.
if I only would have that brush that I had there. So it was very important for me when I started making the brushes, because I primarily made the brushes for myself, not for anybody else. It was not until I started creating videos featuring the brushes that people started telling me like, hey, do you share those brushes? Do you sell those brushes? So those brushes, because they were made for me, I needed them working nicely for all the apps and as close as possible. They are not exactly the same because the brush engines are different on all the apps, but they are as close as I could get them. So if you are like me and you use several softwares, you can also go there to my website. You can get a little discount if you get several of, for Procreate Plus, Photoshop, and etc.
Mhm. If you are a Procreate user, though, and you do want some of these brushes, you can save 20% on them right now during the whole rest of the Proko summer sale that's happening right now until July 6th. You can save 20% on pretty much everything on the website, courses, brush packs like Lucas is here, or even like things like model reference. It's up to you what you need that will help your art flow out of your body better. But yeah, check it out while they're on sale, though.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and then people can take advantage of that because the watercolor brushes I just released. So you get the chance of getting a new pack that I will not put on sale for a long while. But if you go to Proko, you can get it on sale right away.
Yeah.
So it's a good deal.
Yeah. So with this one that you're using the oils for, let's see. So we got the base layer that gave you some color variation. You're doing some local values right now on some separate layers. It looks like you're at a spot where you're adding some shadow layers now too.
That's right. I think that my workflows, even though different techniques influence the way that I approach them, they still just get similar. And I really like to use layers for my shading, again, because of the control that they give me. I can go back and change whatever I need. So normally, if I would have approached this watercolor a bit less graphic-y, less like I don't know, like I don't know how to call it. Yeah, graphic, more natural looking, more realistic. I would have preserved my whites. So I would have left the little holes for the highlights of this guy that we can still add now on top, but it would have been more different because this one is going to be, let me see, I would have approached it from dark to light fully. And this one I would have approached it from dark to light. No, from light to dark, the other one, and this one from. But because I made it a little bit more graphic-y and with full colors, now they're going to resemble the workflows more than what they normally look like. So here I am going from the base colors, and I'm going to go to my darkest darks as fast as I can. So they tell me how the whole piece is going to look like. And then I'm going to go to the mid values, and I'm going to reserve the highlights for the end on this case.
I got you. And so interestingly, for a difference between working digitally and traditionally for oils, in this case, if you had a sketch that you started your traditional oil painting with, that sketch would have been obscured at the very start. You would have already painted over it, but you get to keep your sketch here. At any point, do you turn that sketch layer off and then just start rendering the oils?
Yeah, completely. It's just that normally my paintings don't get to that stage unless they go to really final. But what I do is I lower the opacity of my sketch slowly, just to make sure that the painting is holding together the figure, the 3D shapes, instead of the sketch. But that is, let's see if we have time. If we have enough time for this one, we can get to that stage. And if not, then we're going to have just the low opacity version of the little guy.
Yeah. No, I agree with this very much. The idea of just lowering the opacity of the sketch, because you have some benefits to working digitally. There's no reason not to use them.
That's right. Yeah, it's just like layers. Yeah, just use whatever the tool gives you, so that you have an easier time.
Yeah. And there's also this idea that people they mention when you're working from or comparing digital to traditional, and it's like, you would never have layers, you'd never be able to do this or that. But oftentimes the things that we do in tradition or in digital art does have some sort of corollary in traditional work. There's something else that people will use for like masking and painting an area, like with friskets or some sort of masking fluid. There's typically some sort of similar thing for traditional art. It's just expensive because you don't necessarily need some of those things unless you're working at a pretty high level. But digital is right there.
Yeah, that's right. Because I think that the problems that an artist faces are the same in digital or traditional. Just the tool change. So of course you're going to have the same solutions or different solutions for the same problems. Here we have layers, and yeah, in traditional you would have other things. Masking liquid, for example. Yeah, we use whatever we can.
Indeed. So what do you think this guy's name is, if you were to name him?
I don't know. He's like a slightly illegal version copy, just different enough that I can use it. But it's Frankenstein, so maybe like the name should reflect that, like Frank Swenstein. He would be Frank.
Okay. Yeah, or like it's something. It's just like a hair, like kind of different only.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But probably the chat has a way better.
I was thinking like if we were gonna play into the idea of him being like a knockoff Frankenstein's monster, then you go for like Faux-Kenstein, Faux.
That is way better. Yeah, I like that.
There's definitely others in there for sure.
Chats tend to be way better at this thing.
Fakenstein is right there if we're doing that too, then.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Fakenstein. That's fantastic. I should never name anything. Just ask people in the chat.
No, I don't. So far, we have Bob and Frank.
Okay. Yeah, Fakenstein is still my favorite. Is good stuff.
What are your concerns as you're working on this? What are the areas where you would be most worried about trying to communicate what you want to with this piece? Like your areas of concern.
It's a matter of time, honestly. Like, I'm just thinking. I'm trying to work general to specific. So instead of like going and rendering the hell out of those eyes and making them shiny and nice, I am trying to remind myself, like, hey, this gotta look good at any stage of the process. So I'm trying to constantly go away and say, okay, does it look decent enough at this stage? And what is going to be my next move to increase the 3D-ness of it than the amount of texture that I have. So yeah, now I'm thinking of in planes mostly, and imagining, okay, does the light come directly from in front of him, or do we have this section covered in shadow that is going to help me make it more poppy? But then I cannot take it back.
Yeah, because then it's locked in.
Exactly. And then I have to render everything with that in that direction. But
I do kind of like the idea of it being top lit, because you do have that hard shadow coming down from the area below the lip. So I think it does kind of imply that on there.
Okay. Then let's continue making it with the top light. Let's maybe add a little bit of a dimple there.
Nice. Yeah, classic.
yeah, of course. This guy seems like dimple type of chin. Maybe even another one. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with both of these.
Yeah.
Monte Cristo in the chat said that they like the purple. I would agree.
Good. Yeah, purple is my favorite color for things. For a long while, I didn't realize that I was painting all my characters with purple hair. If you scroll back enough on my Instagram, you're gonna see a lot of purple hair. I think I haven't taken them down, but yeah, you would see a lot of characters with purple hair. It's just a good color. Like all the nicely with the purple, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, there's definitely, even looking at the images on your brush packs, like there's definitely a lot of like a purple or purple red kind of colors for the hair.
Right? It is a thing. I don't know. Do you have a thing like that? Like just put green everywhere, or?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Greens and blues are exactly what I lean into so hard. Even when I'm looking at like taking, so I do photography, and if I'm doing white balance, I tend to lean a little more towards blue than I think is realistic.
That's interesting. That's a good test. Like if you want to know what do you naturally gravitate towards, making somebody do a white balance and actually comparing with the real life probably is.
That's a good idea. I do like this.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. So whenever we're working on a video and we're doing a color grade for something, I just know deeply that I'm gonna prefer whatever the more blue one is, and so I can't be the person to make that decision.
Yeah, but it doesn't have. It's not bad. You can say it's a branding choice.
Yeah. For my own stuff, I'll definitely do it.
Exactly. Okay, so we have some shadows in there. Now the beauty of working with digital is we can go crazy with this light, and I think that I'm thinking of adding a a rim light, because it makes everything nicer.
That's fair.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and drop a rim light. I don't know where, maybe on this far side. I'm gonna choose a brush that is thick enough or opaque enough. For example, this dry hair is very, very opaque. Let's drop it in there and see what it does. It's very quick to just put it and see if we like the effect.
Okay.
And if we don't like it, then we take it away. But generally, in my opinion, these rim lights make everything better, usually.
Yeah, because it's definitely something that we see in movies a lot more now, where everything is usually perfectly lit in some way, and there's a little bit of rim light that separates the focus from the background. So it's an idealized situation.
I never thought it would be because of that, because of media influencing us.
Yeah, because if you look back at something from back in the day, the lighting situations are like, even in film, they're more similar to, or vice versa. They're the art and the media of the time have similar kind of aesthetic looks. So if you look at something like an Alfred Hitchcock film, there's like never any sort of rim light, but so often he'll have that kind of thing where you see a character's face close up and there's just a light, like a strip of light over their eyes.
Yeah.
And we don't see that now because that's not in like anything for movies now.
That is very true. It could have been a very interesting light scenario for this guy, maybe.
Just
Maybe.
light strip over his eyes.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's really good, and it's really easy to create. Like if you want to just create that, just throw a multiply shadow in there and drop it, and
yeah, looking so dramatic.
Immediate drama. No, it's a good light scenario definitely to have in your arsenal.
I had a poll run here in the chat for just a couple minutes that was asking if people added rim lights to their pieces. What do you think was the winner?
I would say that they didn't dare admit the truth and they lied. They said no.
So for this one, we actually got 53% yes, 46% no.
Liars, all of them. You know, that's just.
Yeah, no, when we had Ben Evelyn come through, and he came all the way over here from Australia last year, and he recorded some courses with us. And he was talking about what he does as the little finishing sprinkle of seasoning on the dishes that he makes for pieces, and rim light is definitely in there.
Yeah, of course. No way that Ben went all the way there. Where are you guys located, by the way?
We're in San Diego, California.
Yeah, so quite far away from Australia. I don't know where he is from Australia, but Australia already is far away.
Yeah, it's far away from like everything. Just in the middle of the ocean. But yeah, no, he we got to have him here, and then he also attended Lightbox at that same time. So
of course. I haven't yet gone to Lightbox, but it's in my bucket list.
It'd be good to see you there. Yeah, if you do, I know some people who maybe would record some videos with you there.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah, of course, I would love to go and check that out. I am adding some highlight. I'm cheating because it's hard to not add the highlights. So I am adding them before I have added all my shadows. I shouldn't be doing that. Don't do this, people in the chat. Don't add your highlights before you finish your shadows. It's gonna mess you up. It's gonna no, it's not gonna mess you up. But generally, you want to leave them for the last touch. But
because they kind of inform each other.
Yeah, and they like highlights get all the magic out of the shadows. If you just drop some highlights midway, they are not nearly as juicy as they could be if you would be doing this with a fully shaded illustration. So it's not a great idea, but at least I'm satisfying my desire of seeing this thing with a couple of highlights.
This is like what you said earlier, where you make art sometimes just for you. Adding in those highlights, sometimes that's just for you.
That's true. Yeah. This is just for me, guys. Please don't mind me.
Here in the last few minutes of the stream, I do want to remind people that if you've liked anything that you've seen so far, Lucas's brushes are on sale right now for 20% off. That is all of his brush packs. That's going to be these brand new ones, the halftone brushes, the watercolor brushes, the ink brushes that you saw earlier, the traditionalizer that has all those nice textures that you add into things or use to start as your base, or even the LP painting brushes. If you guys are people who use Procreate, those brushes are right there for you. But if you're also a person who uses Procreate and wants to also use them in Photoshop, you can sideload them with just that one purchase there, or you can go pick those up on Lucas's website. Not currently on sale right now, but they go on sale pretty often. So feel free to follow Lucas online at this name right here, and then you guys can get notified whenever he does have those things for sale. Or you can just see some cool art every couple days, which is also a pretty big and cool thing.
I'm trying to not be annoying. Put things put things of value out there. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, you do a good job.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
We've got a review from a person in the chat here who I think would never, ever, ever lie and is very picky about things. Patrick Bosworth from Proko is saying, best digital brushes I've used. Thanks, Lucas.
Oh, man. Thank you very much. That every single time, you know, it makes me smile to hear that these are actually good brushes, not only for me, but for other people out there.
Yeah, I do like that you had started developing them for yourself, and then it was like, well, maybe other people would want to use these, you know?
Right? Yeah, I definitely think that is the right way of making things. If you're doing something for yourself first, which is something that I have to remind myself often about art, just like, hey, do it for myself, and then if people like it, that's cool. If people don't like it, doesn't matter, because you did it already for yourself. Unfortunately, it is a bit harder. I don't know why with art for me personally than with these brush packs.
Yeah. So Lucas, we have about 5 minutes left. What do you think is the most important kind of information for you to put in here to feel good about the piece?
Let me get a little bit away and see what we're missing. I think like some deep occlusion shadows would be like the nice finishing touch in here. So let me see if we can put just a couple of those here and there, and make this feel good. Alternatively, I can show you a nice little comic that I haven't published just yet about expectations of being an artist versus reality of being an artist. I think that, you know, people are going to enjoy that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
we'll make sure that we go over that. You guys got to keep watching so you can see the comic.
Yeah. I found myself now creating these little comics as a kind of like a creative outlet. You know why? Because of AI. It made me question, as I told you at the start of the stream, why do I even art? And my answer came in the form of silly comics about being an artist. So yeah, I definitely recommend that if you're a bit overwhelmed, like making a comic for yourself is really fun. Making yourself laugh with your art.
Yeah, it's something that you get to do to kind of like work through the situation.
Exactly. So I'm gonna show you that one in a moment. But I think that these occlusion shadows right here are helping to at least bring the focus to the right places. If we would continue with this guy for, I don't know, like, yeah, for longer, this is what I would do. Tie things down with some nice dark occlusion shadows.
This makes sense to me. Yeah, I think they also give context to those brighter highlights that you had put in there, because you would kind of expect to see more of those, with the highlights being kind of pushed back in the way that you see them here.
Yeah, that is true. I didn't think about that, but I think you are right. Let's put this, you know, a bit of a soft shadow, maybe just like vanishing right here. And
because he's so top lit.
Exactly, and that way also we can get rid of the lack of detail that we have here on the neck. So maybe multiplying here, and just put a nice. I have this nice airbrush noise in the pack. That it's when you want to add some airbrush, but you don't want the pure digital feeling. This one has a little bit of noise, and it helps to separate things a bit better. Let's put that one and a bit of overlay from top. Maybe with let's see if a yellow works, just to accentuate that difference. Bring some light to the top here. Let's try a different color. Yeah, right? Something nice, not as vibrant.
I think that, yeah,
I think this guy fits nicely, and that way we can kind of bring attention towards the eyes and hide the rest down there. Awesome. So
heck yeah,
ready to check that comic?
Yeah, let's see it.
Okay. Let me see if we find it.
Are you guys ready for this comic out there?
gonna publish it. I think in a couple of days. But for now, let me see if. All right, it's not even fully done, but at least I can show it to you guys. Oh man, don't tell me that it's not gonna crash my computer. Right? Like maybe it's too much for my poor old computer. Ah, there you go. All right.
You hear that, guys? You need to buy brush packs so Lucas can buy a new computer.
Exactly.
Help us.
All right, so there we go. There we go. Can you see it? Okay. All right, so artist expectation versus reality. This is my experience so far. So okay, damn, the day is just perfect. And it's like now it's summer. This is the reality. Damn, it's just perfect.
Damn, the day is just perfect.
Right? It's just perfect. Just I'm not part of it.
Yeah.
Finally, the weekend. Gonna draw so much, guys. I don't know if that's you. If it's you, I'm jealous because this is me.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I am currently approaching finally the weekend. Gonna sleep so much.
Right? I'm looking forward to Friday. Like, oh man, I'm gonna play. Like, there you go.
We got another.
Yeah, $5,000. I will take it. Absolutely. $5.
Yep.
But yeah. Not the case for everybody, but at least it has been part of my experience of being an artist. Don't take it wrong. Being an artist is awesome, but yes, sometimes it has some broken expectations.
Yeah, without question. Yeah, it's fun, but oftentimes there is still a cost for it. But that's everything.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, someone put just freelancers be like in the chat.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, you get it. All right, Lucas. Do you want to take us through the things that you made here and the packs that they kind of correlate to?
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and have a look. All right. So this was a nice little demonstration for 4 of my approaches that I would do for digital painting, depending on the type of technique that I would be emulating. Each one made with a different pack of brushes, except the inks that was combining the halftones and the inks together. Now, the idea here is that you vary your workflow depending on the tools that you use, depending on whatever the result you want. And here's how I use the brushes, but that doesn't mean that you have to use them this way. This is just the way that I created them for myself. So we have a little sketch. The sketch pack is not yet out. In fact, it's not even finished, but eventually it's gonna go out and it's gonna be in Proko. So good stuff. Then we have the inks in here with a bit of halftones in the background. So sorry, in the background to create a bit of shading for this guy and some insinuation of detail and color. Then we have the watercolor guy in here. That is the newest pack with a bit softer shadows and relying on that inking to have it all together. And then we have this guy with the oils that, because of lack of time, came out a little bit less oily than what I would want to. It came out a little bit more clean than I would want to. But slowly, the idea is you get rid of this line work and you rely on the paint to hold this piece together. But yeah, there you go. This is the inking pack, watercolor pack, and painting pack, all of them under traditionalizer textures that you can also get in Proko.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much for taking the time to do the demos and show everyone what brushes can be used for. They'll obviously use them for their own purposes and in their own ways, but it's always great to get to see the person who made the things demonstrate them.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me again, and hope to see you guys another time in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys don't already, you should follow Lucas online over at this name right here on all of his socials. There's a bunch of good art that he'll share on there, some more comics like the one you just saw, and some other great tips where you also get told about any time that his brushes do go on sale. He's very good about letting people know this one. If you want to find me, you can find me at this name here, but the place where you should go is over to Proko at proko.com/Lucas Peinador to buy these brushes because they're 20% off, like you see on the bottom there, until July 6th. Lucas, I hope you have a good rest of your day, man. It's nighttime. You should get to bed.
I'm gonna go for some dinner now. I don't know, it's something.
All right. You guys, thank you for being here. we'll have some more streams coming up. Just keep a watch on either our Instagram or any other socials or here on YouTube to see more of them. Have a good